Hey there, welcome to the Fantasy Football Game Plan. It's week 9. We are about halfway through the season now. We are going to run down week 9 main slate for DraftKings. We're going to answer your questions, hopefully. Is the Chiefs and Bills game going to deliver? Where can you find value this week in these lopsided matchups? And is the chalk going to be worth it, or is it going to anchor everyone down like it did last week? Hit subscribe, drop us a comment with your favorite plays here in week 9. We're going to jump into it. What happened last week with our chalk?
Yeah, as a quick review, I think most people that played DFS last week are very aware of what happened with CMC and Bijan. I mean, Bijan was the main offender, but I feel like CMC is getting off scot-free for his under 10 points performance too, since of what happened for Bijan. But I did kind of want to talk about, we joked about it last week. Like, should we just make parlays on these players? And instead, especially with these players where Bijan was coming in on some of the tournaments I was entering, about 60% ownership.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to make a rule from now on that I'm never touching a player that's like 60% owned. I can go to a sports book and take his 2 touchdown line or whatever line I think is going to bury me if I don't have him. If I think that, for his price to pay off in a tournament, he needs like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. I can make that parlay. And the sports books are going to pay me like 10 to 1. But if Bijan actually did have 150 yards and 2 touchdowns last week against the Dolphins, 60% of the field had it too. So you weren't even gaining an advantage.
Yeah.
If you had one sports book that was offering that parlay of 150 and 2 for like about even odds versus a sportsbook offering it like 10 to 1, then you're always going to go with the better payout. So I did kind of want to just bring up the high ownership plays as DFS is kind of in this changing landscape of there's so many different options now. There's sportsbooks widely available. It's a very different game than what it was a couple of years ago. And I think the way I'm playing it now is that I'm going to use DFS more as an alternative sportsbook. It's really good for those unpopular players, even if they're really talented. Derrick Henry and Saquon. They weren't popular. You can actually get values on these really talented players that just are not popular. But like when these crazy plays, and like a couple weeks ago it was Quinshawn and Rashee Rice, and I was in on that, but they both hit. And then I wasn't even moving in tournaments because everyone had them. So I wasn't even
Yep.
gaining value from that. So I think I'm more on just the consensus of fading these top plays. Dalton Schultz was 33% owned in some of those tournaments, and his touchdown line was plus 170. He's only going to bury you if he scores a touchdown. So why not just go to the sportsbook instead? I'm looking more for those kind of unpopular plays this week.
All right, we're going to go unpopular plays. Let's see if we can identify the chalk because it's Wednesday when we're recording this and we have no idea what the chalk's going to be, but some of them you can kind of identify.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into it. The teams on bye this week are the Browns, Jets, Eagles, and Bucks. Sunday night game is Seahawks at Commanders, and the Monday night game is the Cardinals at the Cowboys. So all off the slate. Yay, we don't have to debate the Cowboys and what they're going to do. Last week in week 8, the sportsbooks had a rough week. If we only look at the over-unders, only 3 games hit the under. Everything else went on the over. That's kind of crazy. So this week, I'm
Yeah.
wondering if we're seeing those lines, pushed even higher than expected, trying to get some of them to hit on the under, or if we're just going to see a bunch of games fail naturally and get back to average. So let's jump in with our first game of the week, which is the Chicago Bears at the Cincinnati Bengals. Bears are 2.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 52.5. I have been seeing these lines getting pushed up already because everyone thinks they're going on the under or
Yeah.
on the over.
And
Sorry.
this is one of the two 50-point games. There's some weeks where we never have a 50-point game. So we have a lot of high scoring games in theory this week on the slate.
Yeah, we
Um,
do.
how do you like this?
I-
Do you think this game gets to the 52 and a half?
If Flacco plays. It
Yeah.
is all hinging on if Flacco plays. So his injury is the key to this. If he plays, then yes, I am all in on this game. and I do love it. I think everyone will be probably at least partially in on this. Flacco's been playing well. I do have worry that even if he plays and he's banged up, does he end up going out? And we don't want to see Jake Browning anymore.
Yeah, I think they said Flacco had an AC joint, and so it is a true kind of flip of a coin if he's going to play this weekend.
Yeah, they said that he was sore. His shoulder was sore. It's like, well, maybe it's just sore because you've thrown it like 100 times over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Chase is
Mostly
sitting
to
there.
Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chase is sitting there after catching the ball like 40 times and being like, "You're sore." But I guess he is a 40-year-old man, so not quite in his
This is
prime.
true. Okay, so we're going to go on the assumption that Flacco is playing. Are you interested in Joe Flacco or in Caleb Williams in that case?
Honestly, I've been going elsewhere. I don't really like. I've been kind of leaning away from this game just because I see them leaning more into their rushing attacks. I think the rushing attacks are going to be effective, and if we get an effective ground game from either of these teams, we're going to slow it down enough for it not to pay off its price. But the pieces aren't that steep prices for a 50-point game.
I think that's what definitely has the traction here is that Flacco at 5600, if he's slinging it 50 times, then it's a great play. Nobody's got a defense here, and so it's hard not to play Flacco and Jamar Chase. I don't even mind playing it with Chase Brown, the running back, because he also got to almost 26 points last week. They let everyone score, and so all the points that they can put on the board, they need, whether it's running, passing, whatever, if they're going to have a meltdown and let the Jets win and come back after being almost, 16 points down,
Oh yeah.
then yeah, I'm definitely interested in the Chicago parts and in the Bengals parts because they can equally put points on the board. So I think everyone's kind of got to be in the back of your mind, definitely looking at that playing percentage. Are any of these players going to be the chalk? Nobody's like super attractive. Maybe Jamar Chase is probably the one that is the most likely, I would think, to be widely played. Anyone else that you think?
I think Chase Brown might get steamed up a little bit here at home in this high scoring game. That's going to be something to monitor. He did have a pretty great game last week, and I think he's going to be pretty crucial. He should also, we kind of have been picking on the Bears' run defense over and over again for a reason. They just are kind of getting pushed around. I think even Chase Brown, who hasn't been the most efficient runner, can have a great game here.
Yeah, I think he can too. I also am interested in Caleb Williams. He had no touchdowns last week. And now he's facing the Bengals, which I thought against the Ravens he was going to do well, but he didn't. And I think maybe that gets back to average. They made Justin Fields look good. I didn't think that was possible. But the Bengals defense made that happen. So why can't they make Caleb Williams look like a superstar also? And if they do, does he bring Romo Dunze with him?
Yeah, I think Roma Odunze, I think he might have led last week as far as receiving yards, but he still didn't feel that good because he didn't get in the end zone. But
Yeah.
he was heavily used. I mean, targeted 10 times, caught 7 of those for 114. So I don't think you're paying that steep of a price. And he's been fairly consistent, a couple down games, but with just being such an end zone threat, it's really whether or not he gets in the end zone and what better of a place to do it than against Cincinnati. The other name I want to bring up for Chicago, well, kind of a couple. I can see Swift being the alternative play. If this game fails, Swift could be the only Bears that actually does well. But I also like Loveland here if Komet continues to miss time.
Not only Loveland missing time, but Luther Burton's now out also with a concussion. So somebody's going to have to pick up that slack. And I think there's going to be points scored in this game. I see this one hitting the over pretty easily. So who else? Anyone else that you like that might be cheap?
No, Loveland's been pretty attractive at the 3,300 price, and we saw what tight ends can do consistently against Cincinnati. I probably want to keep it like a smaller stack here if I'm taking the Caleb Williams side. Really just choose that one piece that I think he's bringing along with.
Not both DJ Moore and Odunze, but pick one of them.
Yeah, because Caleb's best fantasy games has been when he's rushed one in as well. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of your ceiling case. He rushes one in, and maybe we get a 2 touchdown performance from a receiving option.
Yeah. Somehow Flacco rushed one in last week. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
making him do a tush push.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
probably why he's sore.
That's probably yeah, let's just make the 40-year-old do it all. I hope he survives until we get Joe Burrow back. Let's move on to Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. Chiefs are favored by 1.5. Over under is 51.5. Are you over or under here?
I think I'm over, but I see a tough time for this to be a true shootout, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel really good that it's going to be somewhere in the 50 to 60 range.
I
But,
don't. I'm on the under here. I'm on the under for these games.
all
These two
right.
teams know how to make life hard on each other. And in the last two seasons, including the playoffs, we've only seen players go over 30 points twice in the last two seasons. And both of those were the quarterbacks, Mahomes and Josh Allen, and they each had one performance over 30 points, but they were playoff games. So until they get into the playoffs, they don't seem to really put it all out there. This may be a little bit of a different situation because they both are kind of in different situations this year because they need these games. Usually we've got the Bills leading their division and nobody, in second place that could really challenge them, as well as Kansas City. And that's not true in their divisions this year. So they need these games more. If they treat it more like a playoff game, then maybe we can hit that over. But traditionally, we've not seen that. We've seen actually relatively low fantasy scores, and we've seen it kind of balanced out for these two teams during the regular season.
Yeah.
The weather could also be a factor. 42 degrees and raining.
Yeah. Sounds like a perfect Buffalo day. I do think these teams will have some success. You know, these quarterbacks always get it done. I feel like every time we see them play, they put on a show, and it's always just what tools can they pull out to bring with them. But I have no confidence in any of the receiving options here. So it's kind of like, how do the quarterbacks work? For Josh Allen, it's a little bit more clear. He gets it going on the running side. But for Mahomes, is it Rashee Rice? Is it Kelsey again? Is it Worthy? They have so many different options to attack on that side.
So are you taking Mahomes or Josh Allen or either of them worth their over $7,000 price tag?
I don't think either of them are worth that price. I lean towards just the Chiefs side in general here. I think it's going to be much more efficient for that Chiefs offense than the Bills side. I kind of just, the main question is, can the Bills keep up? Those receiving options weren't even getting separation against Carolina, but they could run all over them. I don't think they're going to run over the Chiefs.
No, I don't think James Cook puts up his 35 plus points again this week. And we haven't seen anything out of the Buffalo wide receivers, and I just don't know where that Kansas City ball is going. Let's talk about Kelsey for a minute. He put up 21 points, and DraftKings cut his price $400.
Yeah.
What's about that?
One of the benefits of playing on Monday night is they just got to guess on how they're going to actually perform. So Kelsey actually, to my surprise, had a great game. It was kind of his first great game with Rashee Rice in the past two seasons. So I don't really like going back to him. I'm going to be out this week, and just if he can prove it again that he can be good with Rashee Rice on the field, then I'll actually buy in, but I'm staying off of him this week. What about you?
Yeah, I'm staying off of all these players this week as well. I have a mild interest. I think it's just an interest and not a DFS interest. I'm curious what the Chiefs are going to do about their running game. So it looks like Isaiah Pacheco is probably going to be out. He's week to week with an MCL sprain. But if he's out, then we're looking at Kareem Hunt and Brashard Smith.
Yeah.
Brashard Smith at 4,200. That still seems like too much for a Kansas City running back.
Brashard Smith, he definitely has some juice, and I think they'll probably give him a specific play. Like, he's definitely the fastest and most explosive running back on their team right now, and they'll probably try to get him in space against one of the safeties on like a matchup, but it's a very narrow bet. He's probably going to have that one opportunity for a big play.
Yeah, it is. But if we're talking DFS and we're looking to uncover some of those players that could,
Yeah,
have that explosive play, I'd throw him in there.
I
I
think
also like Keon Coleman.
I like Keon Coleman too. That was actually the name I was going to bring up because in the one game we've seen Buffalo really pushed. I'm thinking back on that Baltimore game. He is their 50-50 receiver. If they just need a play and
Yeah.
it's fourth down or third down and they need the conversion, they're sitting there down 7 already. Like, Josh Allen's going to just give him a chance for it. So when you
Yep.
have those 50-50 receivers, they can always have those blow-up games if they just come down with a few of them. I think Keon Coleman is the best value here if this game goes off.
Yeah, I think so too. He's dropped to 4,500. At 4,500, he can have a big day and win your tournament. And I don't think anyone's going to be playing him. He has been awful this season.
Yep.
Let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Colts are favored by 3.5. Over under is 50.5. This is kind of my game. I'm not usually one to play the Colts, but I really have a strong interest actually in their passing game and not in Jonathan Taylor.
I'm
Any
kind of
interest?
laughing to myself just because I feel like if you're completely bought in, I'm like, oh no, this must be when they pull the rug. Like that was me on
This is when we
Atlanta
go.
last week. Like,
Yeah. Well, I think it comes because last week in our parlay, I had Daniel Jones on the under for his passing attempt. And I was sweating it. I mean, it did hit. He was under and we hit our parlay, but he threw the ball 29 times and the line was 30.5. So, we didn't have much room there and he sat out the fourth quarter.
yeah,
So I looked at how they've used him this year, and he is averaging just over 30 passes a game, and 30 attempts a game, and he's got a 70% completion rate. They're going, regardless of what Jonathan Taylor does. Jonathan Taylor has 3 touchdowns. Daniel Jones is still going to throw it 30 times. They're just kind of playing that game every week. So if Daniel Jones is going to throw it 30 times, I like a good team. And if I'm going to put my money on somebody that he's got a great completion rate, he's sitting at 6,200. He's not a high price quarterback, and he's going to throw it 30 times against a pretty bad defense for the Steelers. I like that.
yeah. The Steelers have allowed back-to-back 30-point games. I also think the Steelers can keep up here with the Colts. They can push them a little bit more than they've been pushed in the recent weeks.
I think so too. That is not to say that Jonathan Taylor won't have 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. I just think Daniel Jones is also going to throw it 30 times. That's what they've trained me to believe over the last 8 weeks. Jonathan Taylor, 9,800. You would need 50 points to pay off
Yeah,
in a tournament.
which he was a good value last week. I mean, he got to his 40. It is
Yeah.
crazy what he's doing right now. I am going to lean also towards the passing side and away from Jonathan Taylor. Maybe he just has one this week. And so I am kind of with you too, especially if we see those roster percentages again. Just take his 2 touchdown bet and don't play him in DFS. Like
Yeah.
kind of both, like pair them together.
Yeah, I also like going the passing game because I'm betting on a good team to pass well. And I feel like that's a better play. And I don't feel like most people are going to be on the passing game for the Colts just because of Jonathan Taylor.
I agree. He's getting all the attention right now.
He
The-
is. And Aaron Rodgers, no, I'm not really. Maybe he's a good play this week, but I don't think so.
I think he could be if they have been when they've been getting down, they've been letting him air it out, and he can put it up, but it's just hard because he's not giving you anything on the ground. The receiving options aren't the best, but this is a banged up Colts secondary.
It is. That's why I also like DK Metcalf or give me a very cheap Roman Wilson at 3,300. He paid for himself last week. He had 17 fantasy points. Yeah, I'll go for that for 3,300 if I need a cheap play.
I do think DK Metcalf is due for one of those explosive games, and this is the matchup to do it in, where one issue that kind of these backup cornerbacks for the Colts have had has just been tackling, and breaking tackles and getting those extra yards is kind of DK's specialty.
It definitely is. And 5,500, he seems like a steal right now.
Yeah.
Any other pieces? How about Tyler Warren? Are you
I love
interested in Tyler
Tyler Warren. He's probably my favorite piece for this passing attack. He really he's been so good, but he's just been giving you 12 to 15 points. He hasn't been a game changer. You're not really disappointed if you play him, but he's not winning you a week. I think he
Yeah.
can win you a week this week. Tight ends have
I
just been killing the
Yeah.
Steelers.
I think he can too. I still also like Michael Pittman Jr. if he's going to make catches, one-handed behind his back with somebody else holding his hand. I'm going to have to bet on him. And I, in the past, have not been a big fan of his or the Colts passing game. So for me to get here is a little unusual.
Yeah, and just some quick refresh on what tight ends have done against the Steelers. I mean, we saw what Kraft did, 7 for 143 and 2, but before that it was Noah Fant, 4 for 44 and a touchdown, and then it was Fannin, 7 for 81. They're going to scheme him looks, and I know Steichen was watching that game against the Steelers, and so he is taking notes on what Kraft did to them, and we'll probably see Tyler Warren in some similar looks.
Yeah. Don't forget Hunter Henry had 2 touchdowns and 90 yards for 29 points against them, too. All right. So I love that game. Let's go on to San Francisco 49ers at the New York Giants. 49ers are favored by 2.5. Over-under is 48.5. No more Scattaboo. That
Yeah,
was really hard. A non-tackle injury. He just came down bad.
Yeah, that was ugly. And now we have two of the most injured teams in the NFL playing each other at the cursed MetLife Stadium on Halloween weekend. So I think if you're a CMC fantasy manager, you got to get your Hail Marys and your incense ready before the game and just make sure you're covered. But do you think we get to that 48? I was surprised it was that high here.
I don't know. I think we're counting on Brock Purdy being back, which I think we probably will get him back. And we maybe get Ricky Pearsall back. If the 49ers get kind of everybody back offensively, I wonder what then they can take advantage of the Giants. They're also coming off that really bad loss to Houston, which makes me a little bit interested in Christian McCaffrey because I like him to bounce back. I don't like him to have 2 bad weeks in a row. But let's go ahead and talk about quarterbacks first. Do you think we see Purdy?
I think we see Purdy here. I think also Mac Jones' performance last week is going to make Purdy's injury a little bit better and make him healthy for this game. I am just hoping that we see him about 100%. This is one of those where following the San Francisco 49ers, injury report's going to be key throughout the week. I can be completely in or out on this game and Purdy based on how that injury report reads. If we see the entire receiving core and tight end room that we were excited about to begin the year, then I'm in. Like, if we have Jennings and Pearsall and Kittle, it sounds like a good day for Purdy. He's very cheap. Off the injury, he's like 5,500.
Yeah, 5,500. I wonder if they lean a little bit more on Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. They're not my favorite quarterbacks on this slate.
Yeah.
And Jackson Dart without Scattaboo, that just seems wrong.
Yeah, and if they keep scrambling, it might not work well either.
That's true. Yeah, he rushed 6 times last week, 17 yards. He did get a touchdown, but a slight interest in Brock Purdy, but I think I'll stay off of that. How about any of the other players? Do you somebody?
I think a key decision here and probably a popular play that we need to talk about is Tyrone Tracy. With Scattaboo's injury, he's a starting running back for 5,100. That makes all the other pieces fit in very nice. And Tyrone Tracy had some good games last year as a rookie. He's going to be that clear lead back ahead of Singletary. And the 49ers defense got kind of abused by Houston last week. Even Woody Marks was looking pretty good against them. I am interested in Tyrone Tracy paying off that price. I think he's a cheap enough price that I'm not really worried about the roster percentage as much.
Yeah, no,
You're out on Tracy?
I'm out on Tracy. I'm out on all Giants without Scattaboo. Without the Dart Scattaboo magic, nope.
The other thing is,
I'm done.
I think he's going to be used in the receiving game as well. So we saw him heavily used last year, catching a lot.
Since they have no receivers.
They have no one else, yeah. All those passes are going to be like within 5 yards of scrimmage, and we're probably going to see some scrambles. So I think he can kind of PPR his way to a good value of 5,100.
Maybe he can because, the 49ers made C.J. Stroud look pretty good last week.
Yeah.
Letting him pass for over 300 yards. So maybe Jackson Dart can do it, and maybe he's going to be passing it to Tyrone Tracy instead of his missing wide receiver core. How about on the 49ers side?
I think, as you brought up, CMC projects amazing in this spot. I am a little worried that he's going to be the most popular play. If everyone's on him, then I'll probably be avoiding him. I'll probably just let roster percentage dictate my play on CMC. I am interested in Pearsall if we get him back. He was doing really well, and he was that clear number 1 before he got hurt. So if we get both him and Purdy back at the same time, I think that's kind of helps in his favor.
If we don't get Pearsall back, I am super interested in Juwan Jennings with Brock Purdy coming back because it definitely seems like Purdy and Jennings have some chemistry. And Jennings at 4,300, if he's not highly rostered, then I like him to be able to definitely pay off that price tag.
Yeah, I think the side, if Pearsall's out, I'm more interested in George Kittle just actually having one of those blow up games. He hasn't done much this year. I think his highest was like
No.
48 yards. He's only played 3 games. He got hurt in one of them, but he's now 3 weeks off of that injury, and we know his potential. He's one of those tight ends that can truly get above 100 yards and have a dominant performance. So I think he is a little cheaper than he should be at 4,800.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If you look at all of these players for these two teams, last week, the highest performing one was George Kittle with 14.3 points. So something's got to give. These players are not that bad. Something's got to get back to average a little bit. So somebody in this list of 12 has got to bounce, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and pay off their salary. Let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Lions are favored by 8.5. Over unders 47. And I'm actually surprised that the Lions aren't favored by more at home, and I'm surprised they could score 50 points on their own. So Carson Wentz is no more. He's
He
on
is.
IR, gonna
We
have
should see
surgery.
JJ McCarthy here.
We should see JJ McCarthy. Hopefully we're not seeing more of Max Bromser. I can't even say his name. I don't know who this guy is, but I don't want to see him anymore. But I don't know that I really want to see JJ McCarthy with Aiden Hutchinson getting paid and going after him because he may not last that long. He's only lasted 2 games. We may only get him one more after this week.
What about Goff here? Goff at home as a favorite in the dome has historically been a lot better than in his other splits. Any interest in Goff?
No.
Just don't
I,
think he has
yeah,
that
I
ceiling outcome.
I don't think he has the ceiling outcome. I think there are better plays that have more competitive matchups than this one. I don't see this as a competitive matchup. I don't see this as an 8.5 point game. You could push this up to 12.5 and it wouldn't surprise me at all. So because of that, I'm out on him.
Yeah, I agree. If I'm getting a pocket passer, I probably want him a little cheaper, or I want someone with a little rushing upside.
Exactly. And I love Jared Goff. I think he's going to have a great day, but he's not going to win a tournament.
True. But a player I do think can win you a tournament is Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm excited to play as much Jahmyr Gibbs as possible. He's probably my favorite play of the week so far. Are you in on Gibbs, or what's your favorite player of this matchup?
I'm in on Gibbs, but here I think we could be having everybody play Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, he'll be important to watch, but here's just a quick first off, the entire Lions team has had this Vikings defense number. The last time they
Yeah.
didn't put up 30 points was September 25th, 2022, before Brian Flores was even on the Vikings. And even with Brian Flores there, he has given hell to all these other teams, but the Lions are putting 30 plus up every single game. And
Yeah.
it's been a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs. His last 4, he's averaging 115 yards and 2.25 touchdowns from scrimmage. So just monster performances. He had 4 touchdowns and 170 his last game. I think he might get a little swept under the rug with these big names on the slate, JT, CMC. So if he's coming in like the middle of the pack or not the top play, he's going to be in about every single one of my lineups.
I think so too. Yeah, definitely be watching that rostered percentage. And I love him in this spot. If they're up a lot, David Montgomery's even a good play at 5K. He's 3,000 less. Do you like any Montgomery?
I don't think so. The way they use Gibbs too is more as the receiving option, and that's how they've been attacking this Flores like blitz heavy defense. Is just getting Gibbs in space. So I think it's just his matchup, and I'm not really too interested in Montgomery here.
Okay. I kind of feel like you either have to pick Jahmyr Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have to pick that script, who's going to get the touchdowns, who's going to get the multiple touchdowns, and go with it, because you can't come out of this game that I don't see being as competitive with 2 8,000 plus cost players.
Yeah, I think you do
So
have to choose. And
pick which one.
Gibbs and St. Brown have kind of been inversely correlated. They've had great games against this Vikings defense, but typically when Gibbs does better, St. Brown does a little worse, and vice versa. They don't share
Exactly. How about
nicely.
on the Vikings side? Do you have any trust in JJ McCarthy and any of their wide receivers or their running game?
Trust, no. But when trust isn't there, I will lean on the talent. And I do think Justin Jefferson is still one of the best wide receivers in the game. And I'm fine taking him here if we know they're going to be down and just passing. Let's say they're getting blown out and they're down 17, 20 points at halftime. Then I feel like if you're Kevin O'Connell, you're like, all right, let's get some experience and you can just air it out.
Yeah, that Vikings line has just been so bad that, but they will be airing it out and he's got a shot. And I don't think he will be widely played against the Lions. Maybe I'll be wrong. But if Jefferson is low rostered, then maybe. Otherwise, I don't mind the pivot to Jordan Addison at 5,800. Let's say they can cover Justin Jefferson, then I think Addison will be more open and they will be throwing the ball.
Yeah, I think he's a good pivot. He's a lot cheaper too.
Yeah, definitely one to keep on the list at 5,800. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons at the New England Patriots. Patriots favored by 5.5, over-unders 45.5. Falcons let the Miami Dolphins do whatever they wanted last week. Do the Patriots get to do that this week?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get Jekyll or Hyde for the Falcons defense. I thought they were a great play. And then even Tua, reports that his eye was swelling up last weekend and, that morning of, and then he came out and was almost perfect against the Falcons
Don't need to
defense.
see.
Yeah, that was ridiculous, that game.
That was awful. So we've got Drake May, who looked amazing against the Browns. He struggled in the first half a little bit, but then by the third quarter, he was on a roll and looked really good. He scored over 27 DraftKings points last week, threw for just under 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then we had Kirk Cousins that did not look good. I don't know if we're getting Michael Penix back this week. I'm not really sure that it matters against the Patriots. I feel like something's wrong in Atlanta.
I think Penix being back will definitely be an upgrade. I mean, Cousins looked terrible. I think he gave him some job security there, but I think we'll get a much more competitive game. I am a little interested in May, though I haven't been building. He feels bad to make a lineup with because you are truly throwing a dart at which wide receiver it's going to be that week. If I had to pick one this week, it'd be Diggs to come along with May, but
I'm on the Keyshawn Booty train
yeah,
with Drake May, and I do like them. I like them actually a lot, especially against the Falcons. The Patriots defense has only given up more than 20 fantasy points once this season, and that was week 2 to Devon Achane. I'm kind of off of Bijan Robinson. I think we all want him to bounce back. Were we all just like a week early, but I don't see this being his big game.
yeah.
And I'm really worried about the play calling for the Falcons.
The play calling has been questionable. I mean, they're running the least play action in the entire league with one of the best running backs in the entire league. If anyone's going to get the linebackers to bite, it's going to be Bijan, but it just seems wrong. They're not really using him to his fullest. And then we've talked consistently that this New England front seven is great against the run. They have the highest stuff rate in the league, so I don't think this is a play for Bijan.
Yeah, I don't either. And then we saw Drake London out last week. I'm not sure if he is back this week. If he's not, Kyle Pitts definitely gets more interesting and at 4,200.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is a good name to bring up. That's been about New England's defense main weakness, and really where they are allowing fantasy points is to that tight end position. So I think you can get interesting with Kyle Pitts, especially if London is out.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we expect him back, but I don't know that we really expected him not to miss last week. It was kind of a late call, it felt like, on London.
It was.
Anyone else here you want to bring up?
No, I mean, Steph Diggs is probably the one I'm going with here. I just think he will kind of we've seen it oscillate, and I think he has a better matchup here against this Atlanta defense and the coverages they mostly sit in, but that's kind of about it for this game. I'm not interested in either running backs.
No running backs, Travion Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson. I think they're just better options, like
Exactly.
Chase Brown.
It was nice to see a couple flash plays for Henderson last week, but
Yes.
it's just not going to be on a consistent basis. They're still splitting too much.
Yeah. And the Heckle and Jekyll or
Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde for the Falcons. I don't know what I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get a good New England team, and they have the potential to be great if I get the really bad Falcons team.
It does feel like
So,
Drake May is having one of those special seasons, and just it doesn't
yeah,
really matter what matchup he's against, he's going to produce. And he's not being priced like that. He's not the
he's not.
Mahomes or anything, but he's producing like one right now, and he's at
He's
6,500.
he's our last year's Jaden Daniels. It's Drake May this year. All right, let's move on to the Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers. Packers by 12 and a half, over under 44 and a half. Oh, the Panthers at home looked bad last week, and now we get them on the road where they usually look bad. This doesn't sound like a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
I love the Packers defense here. How can you not?
I do hope we see Bryce Young just to make it a little competitive. Andy Dalton looked like the worst quarterback in the NFL last weekend. He was actively running into Bills defenders and killing their drives, and it was extremely frustrating. Like T-Mac got it done with very little help from Dalton. Dalton had 175 yards, and T-Mac
Yeah,
almost had his first 100-yard games. He finished at 99.
that's crazy. I think the Panthers should just do a Halloween sacrifice ceremony and sacrifice Andy Dalton so we don't have to ever watch him again because it was bad. It was so painful watching that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Josh Jacobs is the big chalk this week. I guess I skipped over Jordan Love. Uh, any interest in Jordan Love
No, I
at
think
6,100?
we're getting to Josh Jacobs because that's the main story, and I don't think these two teams are going to be that competitive, and I don't think they're going to be pushed for a quarterback to have a good outcome here.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So I'm out on the quarterback. So yeah, Josh Jacobs has got to be chalk.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs does feel like a really good matchup after what we saw Cook do against this Carolina defense. I am a little off of him. The thing that's worrying me off this game in general and off of Jacobs is just the pace of play. These are two of the slower teams in the NFL. They're the 9th and 14th slowest pace. And we've seen Green Bay be very content of getting up 7-10 and effectively just running out the clock for 2 quarters.
This is true. It just, Josh Jacobs, if he only has to rush 3 times to get 100 yards, then it was 3 plays.
Yeah. Typically the explosive plays, I mean, he can do it, but it's not his go-to. He's not as quick as Cook or like a
That's
JT
true.
to finish off these long runs.
Yeah. Any garbage time for the Panthers? Or
I
just stay
mean,
out of
I always
this?
like T-Mac, but I'm just off this game in general. I
Yeah,
will say the one positive note I do want to bring up is Christian Watson. He looked great in his return in his first
he
game,
did.
and he caught a
Yeah.
couple long passes. I don't think this is the matchup for him, but something to note for a player to bring up in future weeks.
I don't mind him at 4,400. If you need a cheap, what the heck, this wide receiver might have a good day. He might
Yeah,
catch a touchdown. Christian Watson could be it. And if he catches a touchdown, he pays for 4,400. So I
he
don't
does.
mind him as a play. I think Carolina could put up a goose egg in this game.
I am off of Kraft in this spot too.
Yeah. I feel like the tight ends are usually used more when the passing matchups are more difficult
Yeah,
and they
they
can't get
correlate with the
downfield.
quarterback well.
Yeah. Let's move on then to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Las Vegas Raiders. Jaguars by 3.5. Over under is 44.5. Both teams are coming off their bye weeks, and the Jaguars get to come back to the U.S., but they get to go to Las Vegas.
They do. I think we have a couple different reads for this game. I'm a little interested in this game, but you're completely off, right?
I'm completely off. I'm mentally trying to remind myself that before the season started, I actually thought the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to have a good season, mostly because I liked Liam Cohen. But they just, Trevor Lawrence looks bad. He looks really bad. It looks like they need a new quarterback. So Liam Cohen wants to run it. The only buy in here I can get onto is Travis Etienne. I'm just out on both Trevor Lawrence and Geno Smith. I don't think either of them can perform here.
This is kind of the for the Jaguars, I think their offense, their play calling, the play design actually looks good. It's just been the execution has looked off from both Lawrence, and I'm going to put some blame on the receivers too. Travis Hunter took a while to get ramped up, and Brian Thomas Jr. has not come down with some of the passes he was coming down with last year. So
This is true.
my hope and why I'm a little interested in the Jags here and stacking up that passing attack is just against a great matchup against the Raiders off the bye week. Maybe it just took a while to click for Liam Cohen's offense, and maybe it's just taken them some time, and the bye week is what they needed to get fully integrated and fully ready to go. So I like that. I think they have enough talent, and the prices are right for me to go in for stacking this game up.
Okay, if you're stacking on the Jaguar side, are you bringing it back with Ashton Genty, the Raiders running back?
I'm not. I think this is going to be a lopsided game. I actually do like the Jags defense too, and the Raiders just have not shown me a lot of proof of life.
I think should get Brock Bowers back.
They should get Bowers. Bowers is a little interesting, but I'm going to give it a week to watch how he looks. And there's also a lot of trade rumors circling around Jacoby Myers. There's like 3 main teams in the market for him. If we don't see Myers play, we see that a lot with these like trading these players that are going to get traded, that they're surprise inactives. Jack Besh is a little bit interesting because he plays that role that Myers plays. So that would be the only thing. I haven't really been using a bring back. I think the Raiders are probably going to give up a little bit, but I do like the Jags side here.
I feel like these two teams have a slower pace of play as well. Just not a lot may happen in this game.
Yeah. For Travis Hunter, too, we've talked about getting integrated. He's seen his targets and his snap percentage on offense increase week after week. So I think, last time we saw him, he had 14 targets. And he was kind of that number one target.
Yeah.
So I think if you just want like a one-off piece and weren't interested in stacking, he's probably the best bet. He's still at 4,700.
We have a lot of 4,700, 4,500 wide receivers that could have a great week. Definitely those pieces are out there. Okay, so you're in on that game. I'm not. I just have other ones I love. Now I can be persuaded by high ownership late in the weekend. Let's go on to the New Orleans Saints at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are favored by 13.5. Over-under is 44.5. Tyler Shuck. I can't believe he's going to get to start over Spencer Rattler. They gave up on Rattler pretty quick after they let him play the first 7 weeks. Any interest in Shuck or Stafford?
No, we've seen Stafford. The conditions have to be just right for him to have a great matchups. I don't think there are any conditions for Shuck to be a good play. I don't think here. So I'm off both these quarterbacks, even though this is by far the highest pace of play. They should see the most snaps. These teams are 1 and 2 as far as pace of play.
Yeah, they do like to move it, but I think that the Rams need to be going up against the Eagles again, and something they feel like is a competitive game to be throwing the ball. Let's go ahead and move on to the other players. So Alvin Kamara is banged up. He may be out. They only ran the ball 6 times last week. It's
for that high
crazy
pace of play. They were using the short pass game as their run game.
Any interest in any of the wide receivers for either side?
I think they can both PPR their way to relevance. We talked about the pace, and both Shaheed and Olave saw 12 targets. I think I would just lean towards the cheaper option there and save 1,000 with Shaheed. But it doesn't feel like they have a ceiling outcome. You're just hoping they get to 15 points, and then you're okay with them.
And they're kind of expensive. I mean, like we've been talking about all of these $4,500, $4,700 players. And, Shaheed, even at 5,100, he's on the higher end there. And Olave definitely is at 6,100. So I'm out for that reason. With the new quarterback especially, I want to see what happens first. I don't feel like he's going to come in and just tear things up. And it's in LA. Any interest in Kyren Williams or Blake Corum?
Kyron's a little interesting. We also have Puka back, so he is one of the most expensive wide receivers on the slate. I just don't think it's their spot here. The Rams need to be pushed for a high outcome. Blake Corum and Kyren could easily split work in a non-competitive game. I think I'm off all of these pieces here.
Yeah, me too. Let's move on then to the Los Angeles Chargers at the Tennessee Titans. Chargers by 10.5, over-under is 43.5. Justin Herbert or Cam Ward? Either of them. Any interest?
Well, that decision's really easy. I mean, I have to pick one of those two, but I'm going to go. I mean, I think Herbert could have a great game. We saw that offense look completely different with Joe Alt back in the starting lineup, and just having one of those tackles and one of those key pieces back to protect Herbert. They were finally getting it going. He had a great week last week against the Vikings, almost 26, or he had 26 points.
Did. And we saw even with Jonathan Taylor having 3 touchdowns last week, Daniel Jones was still worth almost, I think, 27 fantasy points. So it can, even if they're running the ball and they don't have a Jonathan Taylor, then Justin Herbert can still be doing it. They just have to have that desire to put up their 30 points, which is definitely seems what the Colts have set their minimum score, acceptable score at this week. We're going to put
Yeah.
up our 30 points and then we'll see what happens. So it can happen if he's throwing enough. But at 6,800, he's kind of pricey.
He is a little pricey, and you are hoping he runs a little bit. 60 yards on the ground last week against the Vikings
Yeah.
defense. He's probably not going to be pressured like that, and he's probably going to not need the yards on the ground. So it's very likely that he could just end up with like a 20-point day and definitely not be a game changer for your lineup.
Yeah, definitely. I just have other quarterbacks I'm liking better. How about Kamani Vidal?
Vidal's
Like the
interesting.
Chargers.
I just think that this team wants to show off the passing game a little bit more. Jim Harbaugh has said that one of his personal goals is to get Herbert in the Hall of Fame. And him and Greg Roman have kind of been showing that on what plays they're calling this year. So I think
Well,
Vidal, kind of similar to what we saw last week. Herbert had a great game, almost 300 yards, 3 passing touchdown, but Vidal still had 100 and a touchdown.
yeah, he did. And at 6,300, if he gets 2 touchdowns, then he's a great play. He did last week, he was only 5,300, so he was fine, but he took that $1,000 bump up for this game as well. He's a little bit on the pricier side for this, but I feel like he's going to get a lot of work. I'm not really sure that Harbaugh needs to pass it. And as much as he may want Herbert in the Hall of Fame, apparently he wants to keep Quentin Johnston out of it. Johnston was a 0 target last week, and I played him and lost my fantasy matchup. That was just one of many things that happened. I had like the perfect storm. I also had the Washington kicker who was, deemed out at the last moment as well. There were lots of things that went wrong for me last week to lose that fantasy matchup. I lost by 2 points. Quentin Johnston was one of them. How do you feel about his goose egg, and does he come back from that this week?
Yeah, this Chargers team has just too many options, so you're going to have bad games from some of them. Last week it was Johnston. I think this week Gadsden's probably going to come back to earth, and he's probably going to have a lower game. I think the only one I'm really feeling confident in at this point is Lad McConkey. He seems to have kind of established back to what we thought he was, really, as the number one option. And then it's who else comes along with him. So if McConkey's good, I think Quinn Johnson is a fine player to go back to, especially in tournaments. He's a little cheaper. We're getting that $500 discount this week.
Yeah.
And he's just as likely to have a great game as he was at the beginning of the season.
I guess so. Maybe this is the weekend that, we thought we were going to get at the beginning of the season. So now we've got Quentin Johnston that we have to remind ourselves how we felt at the beginning of the season, as well as the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New Orleans Saints. I'm remembering how I felt about all of these. Yeah, I could take some Vidal, but other than that, I think I'm just out on most of these players. But they could deliver for sure. We saw the Colts do it last week.
Yeah, it feels like just taking your shot with a one-off Charger is the way to do it in this game, and nothing else.
I think so. I'd like to have at least one Charger in my lineup. Let's move on to the last game, Denver Broncos at the Houston Texans. Texans by 1.5 over under 39. And I'm not even sure we're going to get anywhere near 39.5 points in this game.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably going to be more around 20, but both of them have taken advantage to look good against really struggling defenses like the Cowboys and the 49ers and the Ravens. I don't think both these defenses are probably going to show up here, and I think both teams are going to struggle to move the ball.
Yeah, I like both these defenses. Both these quarterbacks are coming off great games last week. So CJ Stroud went for over 300 yards against the 49ers, had his best outing, I think, this year. And then Bo Nix also had 4 passing touchdowns and looked great, but that was against the Dallas defense. So any interest in either of these quarterbacks? Bo Nix at 6,400 going against the Texans defense doesn't seem like a good idea.
It does not. No, if they were playing the Cowboys again, I'd be interested in Bo Nix, but not in this spot.
Yeah, I'm out on both of these quarterbacks. How about anybody else here?
I think some of the cheaper options are probably the most interesting. We're talking about Troy Franklin and like Woody Marks, but
Hmm.
it's just like why? We talked about how many options we have in that 4,700 to 5,000 range. So Troy Franklin doesn't really seem that tempting to go to at that range.
Yeah, I agree. My only interest here is probably Dalton Schultz. I feel like when things get difficult and when there's a pass rush, then they check down a little bit more, and that could involve Dalton Schultz. I don't know if we're going to get Nico Collins back from that concussion. So if Nico's out again and Dalton Schultz, he didn't have the great week that I thought he was going to have last week, but I think that was because everyone else was having a good week, and that could definitely change. And Dalton Schultz at 3,600 is a steal for the tight end.
Also, for the two rookie Houston wide
Yeah.
receivers, Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins, I think it's kind of being blown up that Xavier Hutchinson is the clear best option of the two when just because he had the performance and he looked really good. But Jaden Higgins he saw more targets than Hutchinson. So I think we'll probably just see that continue to flip back and forth on who's a good play week in and week out, or who's the better play between the two of them. I'm not like locked in Hutchinson now.
Yeah. All right, let's go to lineups. You ready?
Do it.
I'll go first. So the first, I've got two lineups. First one, I'm going to go to the Patriots Falcons game. I've got Drake May, Keyshawn Butte, and Mac Hollins at 3,600. And I'm not going on the Falcons side. I'm just going to stack those Patriots players. Then for my running backs, I'm going to fill in with Jahmyr Gibbs and Josh Jacobs. I do want to see that ownership percentage like we've been talking about, but hopefully they're all on Bijan to bounce or something like that, and I'm going to be off of them. To round it out, the wide receivers, I like Michael Pittman. I like Tyler Warren from that game, so I'm going to plug those in. If you wanted a Falcons player, you could take Kyle Pitts instead of Tyler Warren there, and then you'd have a little bit more to spend up instead of Mac Hollins or somebody. I've also got Roman Wilson, the Steelers wide receiver, as my flex because I only had 3,300 left. Rams defense against New Orleans seems like a great defense, but they're 3,900. So that's my first lineup. Any mistakes there, you think?
Well, I like it. I think also just starting with the New England stack, you're setting yourself up to be unique because we talked about how hard it is to identify the target, but the reward, if you actually identify it, is great.
There you go. You could swap in Diggs instead of Butte. Easy. The other one I've got is all on the Colts passing game, which I said I really liked, and to fade Jonathan Taylor. So, especially if I see Jonathan Taylor being highly owned at that crazy price. Daniel Jones, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren. And then on the Steelers side, we're going to go DK Metcalf. So there's a stack, and we're going kind of crazy in this game. My running backs are Kamani Vidal and then Chase Brown for the Bengals. I'm going to bring in Keyshawn Butte, Romo Dunze, and then for wide receiver, and then Romo Dunze as flex, and then the Texas defense
Texans
at home.
defense.
Yeah.
For my lineup, I am going some completely different. I am talking about the Jacksonville stack, and I'm going Lawrence, Hunter, and Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not bringing a bring back. I don't think Las Vegas you need it. I do want that correlation play in the Minnesota Detroit of Jahmyr Gibbs and Justin Jefferson. Just give me the talent of Jefferson. We know what he can do. He's had bad quarterback play in the past. That's nothing new to him. For the Colts game, I'm taking my shot with Alec Pierce. He is a great deep threat. He really just takes a couple of opportunities to pay off his price at 4,600. And then I like George Kittle to be a game changer. He bounce back and have one of those vintage performances, and kind of getting a little correlation with Tyrone Tracy at 5,100. And then I'm also going the Texans defense. I did realize that as we're going through our three lineups, maybe our potential blind spot this week is the Kansas City Buffalo game, maybe the game of the week, and we have no players at all in the three lineups. So it is kind of what we
Just
say. I mean, those teams just spread the ball so much.
They do, and hopefully they're just going to frustrate each other, and it's going to be a rather low-scoring game. But I think the key takeaway here is look for players that are not highly owned and the ones that can have that explosive play. We identified a lot today that could have a great game. So look, especially the wide receivers in that $4,500 to $5,200 range. There's going to be more than one that come out of there with their 25, 30 points.
Yeah. Going
So
back, I think I do want to make a lineup with like Keon Coleman and just say that they're trying to come back. That could be fun.
definitely. So that's it for our week 9 main slate review. Hope you enjoyed the game review. Hit subscribe, leave us a comment with your favorite plays this week, and check out our props bet episode as well this week. That's it.